Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. HTM here with a brand new Magicka Dragonknight build updated for the Flames of Ambition DLC. And much like our recent Ice Warden build, this fire-based Dragonknight only needs one skill, just one skill, to do tons of damage with nearly infinite sustain, making this setup a great choice if you want to level up or grind through champion points quickly in ESO. In this video, we'll go over everything you need to know to make it work, from gear set options, skills, passives, champion points, and a whole lot more, and that's coming up next. All right, everybody, we are back on the Magicka Dragonknight with another updated solo grind god setup for the Flames of Ambition DLC. Tons of flame damage on this guy and very easy to play. So let's jump right into the stats here. Simple, really just one buff you want to maintain. Might as well use our potion buff as well. And with that, sitting at about 40k max magicka, 25,000 max health, 13,000 max stamina, 1,200 magicka recovery, 900 stamina recovery, 3,500 spell damage. That's actually quite a bit over 4k when you consider some of our sets, and then a weapon and spell damage glyph on the front bar. Spell critical is looking good, about 62%. And then remember, we're really not worried so much about resistances on these type of grind builds because you're just going to blow stuff up so quickly that in most cases they won't even touch you. Now, of course, we got 64 points into max magicka, being a Magicka Dragonknight. In terms of the Mundus Stone, running the Thief currently. You can mix this up. You can also go with the Shadow if you want more critical damage. I'd say this also depends on your gear traits. If you're running training, trying to maximize that CP gain, you may want to run the Thief, as I am here, just to get as much crit chance as possible. And then in terms of the food, we got the max health and max magicka. Blue quality food is really all you need on this setup. No recovery necessary. Potions, you can choose to use the basic, magicka potions. That's totally fine on this build. You can also use tri-stat potions if you want a little bit of extra recovery. And then finally, in terms of the race, what race works well on the Magicka Dragonknight? You have lots of options. I am using Khajiit right now. Khajiit, of course, gets the 12% crit damage bonus and crit healing bonus, which is going to be very strong on this type of setup. It's going to allow you to blow stuff up as quickly as possible. But other options, Magicka races, High Elf, Dark Elf, those will give you additional spell damage, which is really nice. You can even get extra spell damage on orcs this patch. So there's tons of options out there. Don't feel limited based on what you have. Khajiits, of course, also get the extra recoveries, which is very nice. And then you get all the extra max stats this patch, which is pretty good as well. So that is the basic setup. Let's jump into the gear sets next. Starting off with a very easy damage set to obtain. That's going to be Mother's Sorrow. Remember, on these basic setups, I'm just looking for gear sets that are easy to obtain. So Mother's Sorrow, it's an overland set. You can buy it on Guild Traders, and it's going to get you all the way to endgame. So if you don't have this setup yet, you should get probably a couple of them for the different Magicka characters that you have, because it's very good. You get the max Magicka bonuses. You get tons of spell critical. So this is what we're going to want for our front bar weapon. Now, in terms of the trait on your Mother's Sorrow staff, Precise is going to be pretty good for a solo build this patch, you guys. You get the extra spell critical, which this did see a nerf. They have nerfed sort of across the board different types of crit chance that you can get, but Precise is still a really strong way to get it. So I do recommend that trait, especially on a solo build. And of course, we are running the Inferno staff, being a fire-focused build, and we've got the weapon and spell damage enchant on the front bar. That's going to give you even more spell damage, like we said, on the one bar setup. So really easy way to run that. And then you're going to combine that with the 3 jewelry pieces, the Mother's Sorrow necklace, 2 rings, spell damage on everything. You can keep these arcane as the trait if you want, or you can mix in some infused, some bloodthirsty if you want to push out a little bit more damage. Now, speaking of damage, our second set is going to focus on that fire-based damage. So for that, we can run a very easy to obtain set, Silks of the Sun, another overland set. I believe this is from Reaper's March. And this is basically the fire equivalent of my last build. If you guys saw the Magicka Warden, the Ice Storm build, this is basically the fire version of that. So Silks of the Sun gives you spell critical, max magicka, basic spell damage, and then 400 spell damage applied to your flame damage abilities. Now, this is going to be a very flexible and useful set on the Magicka Dragonknight, right? Because Yes, it's going to buff our main damage source, which is fire. It's going to buff all types of that. So your class abilities, it can buff your class ultimate, spammable skills. This is very strong on the Magicka Dragonknight because we have so much fire damage, right? And yes, I know there are stronger sets than that, but the point of builds like this is just, making it as easy as possible for people to get these sets. So like I said, Silks of the Sun Overland set. You can also search for it on Guild Traders. You might be able to pick up a few pieces there. So we've got 5 light pieces on the body. We've got the feet, legs, hands, waist, and chest. Training is going to be ideal for grinding, you guys. If you can get a few training pieces, the more the better. If you can mix in some divines, that's going to help a little bit with your damage as well. And then we got max magicka on everything. And then finally, the monster set on this build just makes sense. Grothar is going to be the way to go to extend that fire damage theme. So we've got the flame damage around you. Procs fairly often on this build. And that does have a 5-second duration. So this is going to be nice just to sort of finish off enemies. If they last through your initial cast of your abilities, then this is going to finish them off. Very nice for AoE groups, big crowds of enemies as well when you're grinding CP on this setup. Now let's talk about alternate gear. If you don't have this or if you want to run something else, what else would work? Well, if you don't have the full Grothar monster set, then you can do something that I did on the Ice Storm build. Just get 2 separate monster sets that increase your spell critical. So things like Slime Craw, Ice Heart, anything with a 1-piece crit chance bonus. You can stack 2 of those, and that's going to increase your overall crit chance pretty high on this build. That's what I'd recommend for the monster set. If you don't have the Sun set yet, like I said, there are sets out there that actually do more damage if you can go into a dungeon and farm them. For example, Burning Spellweave. This gives you 490 spell damage. That's when you deal damage with any flame damage ability. So this is going to be very easy to proc. You're going to proc it instantly on this build. That would be a nice option, though there is a slight cooldown, about a 4-second cooldown. So be aware of that if you want to use Burning Spellweave. Another nice dungeon option would be Spider Cultist from Fungal Grotto. That's going to buff your Destruction Staff abilities, which that's going to be our main spammable on this setup. That'll get buffed by 600 spell damage instead of 400. But again, that's another dungeon set. You're going to have to farm that if you don't have it already. I'll have links to all the different alternate gear sets in the written guide. Make sure you check that out if you're interested. But that's it as far as the 1-bar setup. So we got the Mother Sorrow 5 pieces. Got Silks of the Sun on the body, and then the Grothar monster set. Let's go ahead and jump into skills next. What do we need on this extremely easy Dragonknight setup? Well, of course, we've got the 1 skill spammable on this, which is going to be from the Destruction Staff skill line. That is Unstable Wall of Elements. So that's our second skill. We're going to want the Unstable Wall Morph. And if you've seen my previous video on the Ice Warden build, this skill is extremely strong. It is a damage over time effect, but it includes a upfront burst effect when the skill ends, and you can proc this immediately by casting the skill a second time. In fact, every time you cast it after that first initial cast, you're going to get that big burst of flame damage, which is AoE, and if it crits, it does a lot. So that's why running a crit focus build with Khajiit, with some of our CP stars, this ends up being a very strong way to grind XP in ESO this patch. I'll show you how it works a little bit later, but this is basically it. This is the main skill of the build. Again, you're going to spam this single target, AoE, doesn't matter, just line stuff up in front of you, smash down your staff a couple times, and stuff is going to die pretty quickly. Now, combined with that, we just have a series of buffs and passives, and these are pretty flexible. Now, if you do have access to Psijic Order, that's in the guild skills right here. This is from the Somerset chapter, by the way. But if you have access to this, Channeled Acceleration can be a nice buff on a build like this. It gives you access to more movement speed, which is always nice for a CP grind build. And then it gives you the Minor Force buff. So that's going to increase your critical damage by an extra 10%. For the third ability, I just wanted some type of heal. So Cauterize from the Ardent Flame skill line. This is our last skill. This is a really nice heal over time, actually. It's 15-second duration. So once you start taking damage, you can pop this. You don't really have to think about it after that point. It's going to heal you every 5 seconds. And if this happens to crit heal, it's a sizable heal, like close to 10k. And you'll get that heal several times over the 15-second duration. So again, it's nice just to have a heal. For emergencies, I would recommend Cauterize, though plenty of other options are there. You could also do Dragon's Blood, Coagulating Blood, more from Draconic Power. That would be a good one there. If you are running the 2-bar setup, then you could put some more offensive skills here. Put the heal on your back bar. So things like Engulfing Flames, of course. This will be very nice on the front bar, making your enemies take more damage from flame attacks. There's plenty of options on this setup. If you'd like to see more options, make sure you check out the written guide as well. I'll have the full 2-bar setup there with all the skills that I recommend. Next up, Inner Light. It's just some passive damage, honestly. So from the Mage's Guild skill line, this gives you extra max Magicka just by having it slotted on your front bar. You don't have to cast it. Major Prophecy, of course, is there. That's also on Cauterize, so we actually have 2 sources of that. Doesn't matter because it doesn't stack. But I usually throw this on a 1-bar Magicka setup, just again for the extra max Magicka. That's what's going to give us, close to that 40k Magicka pool this patch, which is really strong. And then finally, just a buff for your spell damage. You can run the Earth and Heart skill, Igneous Weapons, for that. It's a 54-second duration buff, which is insane. It's going to last a really long time. Now, as far as the ultimate, I just want something that would go with the flame damage theme of the build, right? We have that increased flame damage. A nice option for that, if you have Mage's Guild, is the Shooting Star ultimate. This does a huge flame damage AoE meteor attack, stuns and knocks down enemies. It gives you ultimate back, depending on how many enemies you hit. Plus the AoE damage over time is huge. This ultimate just does a lot of damage. So this is a really nice option. If you don't have that skill line maxed out, totally fine. Another very good option is going to be Ferocious Leap. That is from the Draconic Power skill line, so Dragonknight class skill, and this does flame damage as well. Not quite as much damage, but it does give you a very nice damage shield there. Look at that, 26,000 damage shield. That's basically our full health bar free damage shield when we cast that ultimate. It's also much cheaper, 125 ultimate versus 200. So either way is fine. It's really up to you what you have access to and what you prefer. But that is the 1-bar setup. So let's take a look at how this works with a couple of enemies. Like I said, most of these skills are flexible. But you will want to buff up, channel acceleration if you have it, and your spell damage. And then really, it's all about that wall, right? So stuff's going to die very quickly. Remember, with the first cast, it just does dot damage. So the second cast is where the burst damage comes. So you're going to have to line it up a little bit. Like that. So you will cast it at least 2 times, most likely 3 times. If you need healing, remember, just pop a heal. But that's really it. I will have some gameplay at the end, clearing my way through a dungeon just so you can see what that looks like. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Moving on to passives. What you need on the Magicka Dragonknight. So the best ones, as far as Ardent Flame, World in Ruin. It's going to increase our flame AoE effect damage by 6%. That's going to be very nice on this setup. The rest of these, we're not using them so much. Combustion does give you a little bit of Magicka sustain when you apply burning. Probably would recommend that one as well. Draconic Power, we're honestly not using very many of these. Iron Skin can be nice for your block mitigation. Burning Heart gives you some extra healing received. You get the extra health recovery if you're running the Dragon Leap ultimate. That's not bad. But then Scaled Armor is probably the best one, so the extra spell resistance. 3,300 for free. You don't even have to slot anything. That's a pretty good one. And then Earth and Heart. The best ones, of course, are Battle Roar. This gives you resources back every time you cast an ultimate. So if you pair this with a lower cost ultimate like Dragon Leap, this can actually function as a burst heal plus some sustain back. It's very nice passive. Make sure you put 2 points there. Mountain's Blessing does give you some ultimate back on the Magicka Dragonknight, so that's not bad. Helping Hands gives you some stamina back, so I would recommend most of these as well. And then don't forget Eternal Mountain. That's going to buff that Igneous Weapons, making it almost a minute long. That's a really long buff for this game. Of course, yes, Destruction Staff passives, you will want all of these, since that is our main focus here. Now, I talked a little bit about the infinite sustain on this build. Similar to the Ice Storm Warden build, you have the Destruction Staff Expert passive, giving you 3,600 Magicka back when you kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability. So anytime an enemy goes down to your staff, that's a lot of sustain back. Plus we have sustain through champion points, basically infinite sustain thanks to that passive. So that's a really good one. Light Armor, yes, pick all of those. Yes, get your racial passives, all of those. And then Alchemy Medicinal Use is a good one. It makes your potions last 30% longer. Let's dive into some champion points. Now, I will have different CP setups in the written guide as usual. So 300, 600, 912 CP. So if you don't have a lot of champion points, it's totally fine. Check out the written guide. I'll give you some different ideas there. Now in the green tree, this is our utility. And where I usually will start is Steed's Blessing. This gives us extra out of combat movement speed by 20%. And this is a slotted star. So you can put 50 points here, slot it up on your bar. That's the first one I always recommend. Follow that up with Gilded Fingers. This gives you 10% extra gold. You might as well earn that while you're grinding. It can add up quickly. And then we're just going to do some initial stages here. This gets us further up in the green CP tree. So 10 points into Fortune's Favor, 15 Wanderer. That's going to open up some more options for us. For example, Break Fall. Reduce your fall damage by 35%. That can actually save your life. It's not always useful, but it can be. And then 50 into Steadfast Enchantment. I'm liking this one more and more on different builds because that basically means your weapon enchant never decays. You never have to refill your weapon enchant. So it's actually pretty useful. And it's passive. It doesn't take up a slotted star. Next, I do like Treasure Hunter. 50 points into this one will give you better quality of items from treasure chests. Rationer, 30 points here is actually really good. This gives you 30-minute bonus duration to food and drink, and this does count still for Psijic Ambrosia, so it's going to buff those XP buffs as well. Very good use of 30 points. And then if you have extra, if you have a lot of CP, I do recommend Liquid Efficiency. Basically gives you a chance to not consume some of those potions, so that can be helpful, especially if you're running expensive pots. In the blue tree, we always want to start with Precision for the extra crit chance. So 40 points into here is going to unlock these ones up here. But then I tend to like going into my damage here in Extended Might. Put 40 points into Piercing. This is going to give us extra offensive penetration. You can come back here for more damage. We'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, once you get Piercing, that's going to open up some of these stars, which are going to be useful, again, on the Dragonknight, increasing our AoE damage and our dot damage, which we're doing both a lot of. So Biting Aura, this is a slotted star. I'm going to put that on our bar for the increased AoE damage. Thaumaturge for the increased dot damage. So you have 2 stars so far. And then remember, we did open up all of these. So you have the Fighting Finesse star. This is 10% critical damage done and critical healing. It's basically like a free Shadow Mundus. So this is a very good one as well. If your crit chance is around 60% and above, definitely pick up Fighting Finesse. It's really good. And then similar to the Ice Storm Warden build, Dragonknights have a very high probability of status effects as well with that burning status effect. So you can get some extra damage from Occult Overload. This just basically causes an enemy to explode for bonus AoE damage if they're under one of those, status effects from elemental damage. So the Dragonknight, much like the Warden, very nice class for applying this. And it's fun. It's just an extra source of damage, so I would recommend that. So that's going to be your 4th damage star, right? We have Biting Aura, Thaumaturge, Fighting Finesse, Occult Overload. Next, you can just pick up some more passive damage like we talked about. You can come back into Extended Might, get your Flawless Ritual. So this is going to give you an even greater a chance to apply those, burning status effects. And then War Mage, extra spell damage passively is always good. You can also get passive Max Magicka with Eldritch Insight, 40 points there. And if you happen to have any more beyond that, you can go into Staving Death. And this is some of your defensive passive stars. So like Quick Recovery, extra healing taken, and then Preparation reduces your damage taken overall. That's a really good one. Finally, let's talk about the red tree. Some of the best stars in the red tree are actually over here on the left side. So Rejuvenation, this increases all of your recoveries. This is really nice with Tri-Stat Potions, with Khajiit. Combines for a lot of recovery on your build. Ironclad, of course, the extra armor. Balanced Vitality for the extra health. So this is probably where I would put my initial 3 stars. From there, you can get even more sustain on this build by coming down to Sprinter. Just get 1 stage of Sprinter, come up to Hasty, 1 stage here, 1 stage in Hero's Vigor, and then this is going to unlock all of these different options here. And the best for this type of build, like a grind, focused Magicka build, is going to be Siphoning Spells. 1,500 extra Magicka back per kill. That's at max rank. So 50 points into here actually goes a long way in terms of your sustain. Though on this build, honestly, it might be a little bit more sustain than you need. So feel free to play around with some other options. But this is always a good one for sustain. If you have any more points beyond that, you can always come back and fill these out more. Hero's Vigor, more max health. more sprint speed, more sprint cost reduction. I try to max these out if I can. And then you can get some other sort of defensive ones. You could get tumbling, and you could get defiance for the reduced cost of break free. So that's what I would recommend for the red tree. Last but not least, let's talk about the outfit style. If you're curious about this. So we have a mix of different styles here for the body. Most of the body pieces, I should say, this is going to be Worm Cult. So you have like the light chest, light legs, boots, and hands. Shoulder, I believe, is slightly different. Shoulder. That's the Sunspire style. And then head is also different. This is the one from Cloud Rest. All right, everybody, and with that, that's going to wrap up our Firestorm Magicka Dragonknight Grind God update for the Flames of Ambition DLC. Hope you guys enjoyed this one or you found it informative. Of course, if you did, don't forget to crush that like button. Make sure you're subscribed right here for many more ESO builds and guides just like this one. We've got some brand new content coming out next week, including new guides and an early access look at the Blackwood chapter. Make sure to get those notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. And as always, thanks again for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.